Welcome back to Demon Slayer and review episode number 10. Yep, where basically this is the only new anime coming out today because One Piece and Boruto decided to take a week off because yesterday was New Year's. This was discussing the newest episode of the anime, episode 38. Things are going to get really fleshy. This covers 77 to 79 and the first 4 pages of chapter 80. I'm like, that's not bad. 4 pages. I'm like, wow. 3 chapters. More than lately. It's like the last few episodes I covered only 2 chapters. Now I covered 3. Well, yeah, that's good. Which means, as this very episode, there is exactly 18 chapters left to adapt. 18. I'm like, that's good. Because there's only 6 episodes left to go. Yes, I think that's fantastic because this arc ends in chapter 97. What happens this episode? We have a brief thing with Tundra because most of this episode focuses on Inosuke. Yeah, I'd say almost the entirety of it. Well, first of which focuses on Hashira. He basically runs around you see him running, hears a sound, and he goes and finds one of his wives, who was injured by Upper Six. Gives her a cure for the poison, which she ran into her. She poisoned herself to get away from her, and of course tell him to basically, he's like, she's recovered, just go, just leave the district. And she's like, okay, your job is done here. And then he hears like a sound, looking for demon presence, and he does. It basically goes to the ground. And he uses his sword, which is 2 swords. He finally takes out. It's been on his back for the last 7 episodes. This is episode 1. He basically uses his sword to basically blast the ground. And you don't see him again until toward the end of the episode, which I'll get to that. Cut to Tundra versus Upper Six, where you see him use his, because of course he mentions that the water breathing doesn't work on her. So, use the fire techniques. And it does work for a bit. Of course, there's a flashback of him where whenever he gets a high fever, he has to raise his temperature really high, which apparently does cause issues with his health, but it was basically part of his training. And she's actually quite shocked. Though he's a bit sloppy, but he's held his own for quite a while. And he says you're going to really kill him. And after that, we do briefly see her, the Upper Six again, where she talks to something else, but that's it for Upper Six this whole episode. Because meanwhile, though, we see a woman runs the hall and is like, run, there's a monster basically blasting through the floors and ceilings. They're like, what are you talking about? And then there's an Inosuke. He managed to find the exact place and just plow right through the freaking ground like, oh, I can fit my head through here, but I can't fit my whole body. So apparently, I never noticed this at all that he can do this. Apparently, he can dislocate all of his joints, which does frighten the ladies. But I would think there's like, ew, that's disgusting. Dislocating your joints, like all your freaking joints. So he moves like a freaking snake. He just rolls around a bit. And by the way, he still got his swords on him. And he comes out and like, oh, it's that pink belt thing with all the humans in it. And then he sees Zeneku. He's like, what a loser. And then you have the end of it says, well, in the manga, this thing says, what are you doing in my pantry? In the anime, she says, what are you doing in my food locker? Yeah, I'm not really sure why they changed that line for. And this is all the English translation sub, basically. And this is not Funimation. Not really sure why they changed that for, but still the exact same thing, so I'm not going to I just wonder why. Oh, by the way, before I continue here, there's a big thing with Tanjiro. Upper Six does mention Tanjiro that his sword was chipped. There is a slight change here. They changed the direction of the sword, because in the manga, they had the sword facing to the right. And you don't see the nick. You see a little bit of it. And in the anime, you actually do see it when the blade is pointing to the left. And you do see the nick. And of course, she criticizes the craftsmanship of that sword. And of course, Inosuke is like, Tundra is like, the guy who makes this is amazing. And he's going to be basically beating the crap out of him later on for basically damaging the sword. Which is what he does. Then, of course, we'll go back to that food locker, where apparently Inosuke just decides to slice up like a bunch of ribbons. You see a few of the prostitutes who've been absorbed. Then apparently, he not only freed 3 of them, apparently he freed a total number of 5. And then of course Jay fights the main part, keeps slicing up. It's like, oh, you're very powerful. And like, okay, and apparently, get this, 2 of the women who are actually in this thing are the Sound Hashira's missing wives. Just by sheer you see them briefly on this cloth thing, which, by the way, they have a slight different name for it in the manga, but I do love that. I think her name is Miko. I think her name is. She's the taller one of the 2. Yeah, she actually likes the name for this thing, Warm Belt. Like, yeah, she likes it. It makes total sense because it's like a freaking worm. And of course, they try to help him out for a bit, defending against defending people who look like they were basically absorbed into this tapestry. But luckily enough, that apparently Zeniku, he got freed too, and he does his thunder ability. He just slices everything up. Like, oh crap, he hears like 2 sounds. But then all of a sudden, wait, the ground above is shaky. What the heck is going on here? Here comes Sound Hashira. And the Warboat's like, oh crap, it's a Hashira! And the thing proceeds to sort of get away. And of course, well, you have Uju where he goes and pats his wives in the head. He should have basically given him a hug because he hadn't seen him in a while. And of course, you see a brief flashback of kind of in the way when these 3 ladies first became his wives, and basically they had put their lives on the line. They had to protect themselves and protect other people too. Gives some good advice. But from my perspective, damn man, you got 3 beautiful women to be your wives, and you gotta be jealous. Yep. And of course, well, they have to go basically deal with, well, what happens next. They do have this little nin moment where they do mention that one of the wives actually volunteered herself to become one of the wives, because it's mentioned in the manga that she had a crush on him. Interesting though, they threw this little tidbit, not in the anime, but in the extra stuff for the nin stuff. Because they mentioned apparently the family does practice polygamy. I'm like, that's interesting. Here in the West, in certain areas, a lot of areas of the country, it's illegal to do that. Yep. But some areas of the country do allow it. Some, but not all of the country. Yep, this was a damn good episode, and I can't wait for next week. It leaves me eagerly anticipating for next week's episode. I'm loving this arc. I really am. Yep. Now you might be asking, Nick, are you going to watch the Mugen Train episodes for this anime? Probably watch them at a later date when I review them and see if there's any changes. From what I heard anyways, the only changes they made is they gave it new music and they gave it new animation. That's the only info I got. So I wasn't really interested because I had just seen Mugen Train movie. So I might review it at a later date. It's possible. Also, I have not heard anything if in fact that there's been a dub release for this thing. No, for some reason there isn't a dub release for it. I think that's kind of weird. Yeah. Yeah, let me see here. I know the main first season's been dubbed. The TV specials, yes, which is basically basically having these 2021 specials. That's basically those. I'm not sure about the training. Let's see, Mugen Train. Let's see. These have not been translated in English yet. Nope, they haven't. When? Don't know. Oh, by the way, in the manga, he's never heard of as Lord, the Sound Hashira. He's referred to as Lord Tenshin in the anime. In the manga, I just referred to him by just his first name, no title with it. Which they do explain the reason why in the anime, because he's the head of the household, so of course they call him Lord. But why would his own wives call him that for? It makes no sense. Probably because they admire him. Yep. But yeah, not much to say about it. It's a damn good episode. Can't wait for next week. Okay, so that's it for particular review. The next review I'm going to do is a review of, well, some more Super Sentai later. I'm going to watch a couple episodes of Space Attorney, then, of course, get back to Super Sentai for 4 episodes, and I'm going to start reviewing Black Butler. Okay, next video. Bye.